Peace and all good from Franciscan Media. I'm Father Jim Sabak, and this is the Inbreaking of the Word. 20th Sunday in Ordinary Time, entering into the 20th week in Ordinary Time. And what a doozy of readings we have this Sunday that leads us into this 20th week of Ordinary Time. Jeremiah and Luke connected together as they always are. The first reading and the gospel arranged such as that. So we see in many ways a foreshadowing of a promise, and then that promise kind of being granted with the gospel and the revelation of who Jesus of Nazareth truly is. Again, though, these two readings reveal something that a lot of times we don't consider, or we don't think enough about our faith and what our faith is and what our faith is supposed to do within this world. Too many times our faith is a private pursuit, and society and culture are very happy to keep it just that, a very nice little private pursuit, a pastime, a hobby, perhaps, that kind of thing. We make our prayers, we do our devotions, we make all kinds of prayers before the Blessed Sacrament. It's all a me and Jesus kind of thing. It's all me trying to find this way within God's life or within Christ's life that's going to make me have a good day, a better future, granting promises, granting wishes. It's almost as if Christ is some kind of strange little magician and trying to make us and trying to grant us those things that we so desire, just like any magician or any kind of wizard or any kind of wishful thinking kind of thing would want us to do. But that is not what our faith is about. That is not what we're called to be as people, as believers in this world, as witnesses to Christ's love and God's love within this world. It just doesn't work that way, and yet we constantly need to remember that and to reinforce that within our own lives, that we are called to something more. And our faith calls us into something more, which is in many ways the greatest of all challenges. And that's what faith is. It is a challenge. It is a dare. It's not a hobby. It's not a pastime. It's not even an agenda. It's not a good idea. It's not some kind of platform that political parties or political endeavors can market or utilize or manipulate to their own ends. It is something that causes us to see the world differently and to want to experience this world differently, and that can place us into a very uncomfortable situation. And so we'll get to Hebrews, the second reading, in a bit, but that really doesn't relate to the first reading of the gospel today. Again, Hebrews, that's a semi-continuous reading of one of the letters of St. Paul. That is how the second reading has been set up. Again, lives by itself today, this week. But the first reading of this and the gospel, what did they say? Well, first reading from Jeremiah. And Jeremiah has been saying things that especially the powerful within Israel do not want to hear. And that is, destruction is coming because the treaties that they are making, the friendships that they are establishing, the alliances that they are forming with all these neighboring countries, especially with Babylon, are not going to end up well for Israel, because all they want is Israel's land. They want especially Israel's access to the Mediterranean, which, again, Babylon has with an access to the Red Sea, but not to the really good shipping lanes that are the Mediterranean. And so they want to conquer this. And so they make all kinds of flowery pronouncements and create all kinds of alliances and treaties which they think are going to benefit Israel, but they are not in the end. And Jeremiah is constantly telling Israel to be cautious, to be cautious, to be cautious. Well, there are kickbacks, again, that the leadership is getting, especially the princes, who are in charge of many of the government offices within Israel. And because the kickbacks are delightful and they are quite profitable and they are comfortable and whatever it is, they see no problem with this. But Jeremiah keeps saying, be forewarned, do not believe this, be cautious, be cautious, be cautious. And they don't want to hear it anymore. He's demoralizing the people, he's demoralizing the troops, nobody's happy and everything else like that, because that's what Jeremiah is trying to tell them, is to wake up to what is happening, because that is a prophet's job, to call us to wake up always to what is important and to what truly matters, that sometimes we cannot see ourselves because we are so distracted or lost by ridiculous pursuits, as Israel is experiencing. And so this waking up, the people do not want to hear. They want to silence it. So they throw him into this great well in which there is just mud at the bottom of it. And Jeremiah is just kind of sitting there sort of waiting to die because they're not giving him any food. They just kind of have gotten rid of him. Well, again, the king allows this to happen, but then the king kind of repents because somebody goes to him and says, "Where is your compassion? Jeremiah is going to die. Take him out of this well. It is not good for him. And it's not good for us in the end as Israel." And so again, this king relents. The king of Israel relents, and Jeremiah is kind of taken out of the well, and now brought into kind of a seclusion and a safe zone, a safe haven to protect him from the kings and from the princes and those people who are powerful who want to eliminate Jeremiah's voice. Again, a voice that speaks of challenge is a voice we do not want to hear at times. We want a voice of change, perhaps. We want a voice that reinforces where things are at. We want a voice that keeps the status quo, even if we're not happy with it. But a voice that challenges, that say things have got to change dramatically and in ways we might not want them to change, is a voice that we want to silence again and again and again. And yet, as the gospel shows us, Jesus' voice is not just one of love and peace and calmness and quiet and being this wonderful little tabby cat or whatever it is that we can pet on our laps, a lap kitty, that allows us basically to calm our heart rates or whatever it is. Jesus' ministry is actually one that is supposed to rile us up and recognize the fact that the way things are, the way the status quo is, cannot and should not be maintained because it only wreaks harm and destruction. It only brings hurt and pain to people's lives because the status quo is something that we have invented as human beings to keep society running. And because of our own limited views, our own limited insights, our own limited ability to see the future and where consequences lie because of our decisions, does not make the status quo something that we should embrace and hold on to at all costs. And so basically Jesus says, you think I've come to bring peace? I have not. I've come to bring discord and division. And I wish to light a fire on this world, upon this world, and I wish that it was already burning. I mean, this is language that does not fit well with many images of a saccharinely smiling Christ, again, the Sacred Heart, in which this really weirdly kind of strange, soft-focused Jesus is beckoning us to him. That is not the Jesus who is calling us today. It is not the Jesus who calls us this week. It's a Jesus basically who says things must change. There must be an overturning of the way things are. And what will happen is this may cause even division within family. Again, that sacred unit, which many times this church of ours tries to preserve at all costs, may also become the site, of which basically trying to follow the gospel, trying to follow the Holy Spirit, may pit family members against each other. And that is because what Christ asks us to do and asks us to be in this world is not something that can just be taken on a whim. It is something that we have to commit ourselves to. Either you must commit to this or not. Either commit or die is basically what Jesus is asking us to consider today. If we do not bother to commit to what it is that Jesus is asking us to do, then there will be no life, there will be no future, there will be no destiny. This world that needs to change, this world that needs to understand that true love fights for what is important, that true forgiveness fights for what matters, that true mercy and giving and not being judgmental about things fights for the integrity of what it means to be human in this world, and for the integrity of this world as God's creation that needs to show forth its goodness at all times, because that goodness comes from God and lies in God alone. That is something we're asked to consider this week. Again, do we wish this fire to be lit upon this world so that this world can finally become what it is that God has intended it to be from the beginning? Or will our own stubbornness and our own pain get in the way of that and not allow us to see what is true about ourselves, about our God, about who we are called to be as believers in this world? A blessed rest of this week from Franciscan Media, and may the Lord, as always, grant you his peace.